Hello and welcome. I'm Phil Torres, here to talk about innovations that can change lives. We're going to explore the intersection of hardware and humanity, and we're doing it in a unique way. This is a show about science by scientists. Let's check out our team of hardcore nerds. Kyle Hill is an engineer. Tonight, he's turning back time. Hearts ravaged by age, suddenly rejuvenated. Now the story behind the Fountain of Youth protein discovered in a Harvard lab. Rochelle Oldmixon is a neuroscientist. Tonight, meltdown at Glacier National Park. How warming temperatures are threatening a fish and a way of life in these gorgeous mountains. Now, science fights back. Marita Davison is a biologist specializing in ecology and evolution. Tonight, she shows us why the tower of this San Francisco bridge may be the safest place to ride out a major quake. And I'm Phil Torres, I'm an entomologist. That's our team. Now let's do some science. Welcome to TechKnow. I'm Phil Torres, and this week I'm here with Kyle, Rochelle, and Marita, and you guys have some fantastic stories for us. Kyle, you went to Harvard University to look at one of America's deadliest conditions. Tell me about it.
So over 600,000 Americans die every year from heart disease. So you can see, I went to Harvard and I spoke with researchers who found a molecular needle in a haystack in the blood of mice that might help solve this crisis. Let's take a look. The human heart is a miraculous fist-sized feat of engineering, beating 100,000 times a day, more than 2.5 billion times in a lifetime, pumping 5 quarts of blood a minute, or about 2,000 gallons every day. That's the equivalent of filling up your SUV gas tank 100 times each day. Unfortunately, the human heart is also a machine that's not built to last.
When you get these heart failure episodes, what's it like? What does it feel like?
It feels like you can't breathe. And it feels like you're going to pass out.
Dr. Richard Lee is Antoinette Owen's cardiologist and has been treating her for a common elderly heart problem called diastolic heart failure.
She has a heart that squeezes normally, but it doesn't fill properly.
Both Dr. Lee and his Harvard University colleague, Professor Amy Wagers, joined forces in their labs to tackle this problem. What they found was astonishing. So you found, basically, that when you joined an old and a young mouse together, the sizes and the structure of the hearts changed. How dramatic was this change?
It was amazing enough that even I could see it looking at the heart as a whole, and even more amazing when you started digging more deeply into the layers of how the individual cells changed, how the genes that the cells expressed changed as a result of this exposure to young blood in the old animal.
That something was growth differentiation factor 11, GDF11, a protein circulating in blood that makes an old mouse heart young again in 4 weeks. So right now we're seeing the next step of GDF11 here.
Science in action right here.
Now, mice don't get heart disease like humans do, but they might give us clues about how to fight it. Here at Harvard, researchers like Dr. Lee and Dr. Wagers are trying to follow those clues, trying to solve a cardiac crisis. One day, healing mice hearts might help heal human ones.
We developed a hypothesis that there was something in the blood, because the blood has access to all of these different cells and tissues and might be able to communicate these aging signals.
There must be thousands of factors that circulate in the blood, so how did you isolate this one protein that you didn't even know you were looking for?
We developed a collaboration with a biotech company called SomaLogic in Colorado.
The technology allowed researchers to use a specific marker in the blood to help identify the protein.
It's kind of like having barcodes on thousands of Post-it notes, and that by using those different colored Post-it notes and finding the right things, then they can pick out and check the barcode and see what it was.
It's incredibly important doing these kinds of discovery approaches because it really is looking for a needle in a haystack.
It took the researchers 5 years to isolate GDF11. The way I've heard it put is that when you discover something, at least as dramatic as you two did, for that fleeting moment before you publish it, you know something that no one else on the planet knows. That's gotta feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we've been such good friends, it made it awfully special.
I think I jumped up and down.
Dr. Wagers, I know that you have kind of a odd way of celebrating when you have papers published. Can you tell me a little bit about...
I don't think there's anything odd about it.
Dr. Wagers celebrated the GDF11 discovery by taking another leap of faith, this time from 10,000 feet.
So I declined to go to, as I would say, jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
All the researchers acknowledge that they still have their work cut out for them.
I view this study as hopeful, but I am cautiously hopeful. I, for one, have not seen any study to date that shows these dramatic changes in the thickening of the heart and the appearance of heart muscle cells.
In the meantime, diastolic heart failure still has no cure and continues to be one of the leading causes of hospital admission in the US.
When we're young children, our heart is a very compliant structure. It behaves almost like a party balloon. As you put volume into it, the heart is compliant and can handle that volume. And by the time that human beings enter their 70s and their 80s, the heart will behave more like a leather purse. And so, yes, I would say there is a pressing need to come up with therapies that can alter the progression of this disease process.
What is the next step in looking at how this protein that you isolated affects the heart or even the rest of the body?
We do know that this protein circulates in the blood of humans, and we know that it likely has some relationship with disease. So the big thing in the heart is how quickly can we make the story really supportive that actually changing this in humans is a good idea. And that's going to require a lot of hard work that we'll do as fast as we can.
So now, what's the end game for these guys? What about, taking this to the next level?
Going forward, they're looking at other tissues in the body to see if that same protein, GDF11, can change the muscle tissue or skeletal tissue in the same way. And they're looking at applying this further.
They're almost explorers of the human body in a way. And I always wonder, what else are they going to find that's that small within us that could be curing us?
Exactly. If you think of how many things could be just floating around in your blood, regulating the way you age, regulating even the way you die. We now know that dying is a process. It's not an instantaneous thing. It's a process that moves through your body. If we could find proteins that affect how you die, it could change human life as we know it. So really, this kind of research could go anywhere, and that's really why it's so exciting.
Very small target, pretty big implications. Great stuff, Kyle. And Rochelle, you went to one of the most beautiful states in America that might be in a little bit of trouble.
I went to Glacier National Park in Montana. It's gorgeous, but its glaciers are starting to melt. It's experiencing climate change at an alarming rate. And the cutthroat trout of Montana are sort of the mainstay of the economy there, and they're in trouble. So why don't we take a look, dive in, and see what we found out. The scenery is breathtaking. Rushing rivers. Picturesque prairies. Many parts of western Montana look untouched by man. It's small town America. Everyone knows your name. People come from around the world to fish the Blackfoot River and other waters. Norman Maclean made the Blackfoot famous in the 1976 novel, A River Runs Through It. Today, there's a threat to this popular pastime.
some are concerned about trouble from climate change and other human influences. In this wild country, it may be that science needs to save the day.
Global warming is putting the state fish, the West Slope cutthroat trout, in danger.
All right, we're going to need the net, the electrofisher, and all the pit tagging equipment.
Clint Mulfeld monitors fish and rivers for the U.S. Geological Survey. They're looking for solutions.
This area is actually warming at 2 to 3 times the global average. The worst case scenario would be that the rivers dry up, warm up too much, to the point where trout can't inhabit these waters anymore. Nothing like sampling trout in Montana.
Mulfeld and his team work the streams in Glacier National Park.
All right, let's start here. This is kind of iconic. It's the poster child of climate warming in North America. As temperatures start increasing, we can actually see fish starting to move up the mountainsides.
That means the trout migrating from the streams in Glacier National Park for cooler waters.
This should be a good day. We go into small streams and we use a backpack electrofisher and we electrocute the water. It draws the fish in. We then net each fish. I'm gonna start shocking here. Oh, there's one right there. Cutthroat. Shaka Khan, we're on.
What are we doing?
Surveying a stream where we hope to tag some native West Slope cutthroat trout.
What's the concern here?
Warming temperatures are actually causing the snow melt to come off sooner. Fish are really keyed into temperature and flow.
These fish like it cold.
They like it cold. Sooner or later, there's going to be nowhere else to go. Yup, there's one, little cutthroat.
How important are the fish in these streams to Montana?
Well, these streams are actually the lifeblood of Montana. They provide nursery areas for our native fish.
After capturing numerous fish, the team sets up a triage on the side of the stream.
We take critical measurements such as length and weight. Its length is 92 millimeters, and its weight is just a mere 5 grams.
How do you know it's a cutthroat trout?
If it has a vibrant red or orange slash under the gill. Also, we take a genetic clip to determine its genetic status, and then we also put a tag in their body cavity. And that allows us to track individual movements.
They've strategically placed antennas under parts of the stream so they can track the fish when they swim by. Mulfeld says there are some short-term solutions.
Stocking fish in these rivers, restoring habitat, providing complexity of streams, rivers, and lakes for them to move around in, and also developing conservation plans that actually look out over longer time periods.
Warmer temperatures are affecting everything across the region, the economy and the people. 71-year-old Paul Roos has been fishing the Blackfoot River for 65 years.
I have a passion for this river that I think was earned honestly.
Can you tell me a fond memory of being out here with your father?
I was with my father when I caught my first fish. I was with him when he caught his last.
When the rivers reach 73 degrees for 3 consecutive days, the state closes the rivers to fishing because it puts too much stress on the fish.
When there's no people coming to fish in July and August and September, you notice it. It's important to contribute to something that is going to last after I'm gone. Pretend like you have a paintbrush in your hand, and then as soon as the line straightens, it's going to drop, and you just drop the rod with it.
Bring it back?
Beautiful.
Rancher Jim Stone is also affected by changing temperatures. He is a second-generation Montana rancher. He's adapting his ranch to not only help his business, but the fishing industry too.
What does being a rancher mean to you?
It's an honor, really, to be a manager of a piece of land. It's the survival of our family.
What happens if it doesn't rain here?
If we don't have grass, we're not able to feed those cows you see behind us. If we're not selling calves at $1.64 a pound, then that's taking money directly out of our wallet.
He's finding new ways to manage water with the help of groups like Trout Unlimited.
We've set up partnerships to both help the river by helping these tributaries and at the same time helping these people trying to make a living off of this land.
On Stone's ranch, they've been able to get his water table back to the surface and help the fisheries.
It's a complete win-win for us and really reconnected the fisheries. One of the star programs that we have here is all the irrigators, the outfitters, working together and trying to leave as much water in the river for the fish. We can give water back and still be productive.
Do you think the cutthroat trout can be saved?
I do.
Besides the fish, what else is being affected there by the climate change?
Everything. The water table itself is completely changing. So all of the ranchers, everyone who has cattle, who raises any kind of crop, they're all being affected by this. It's just the complete economy is being affected.
And what really amazed me is that even though some people disagree with the politics of climate change, it seems that when it starts really affecting you and the way you live, that everyone comes together, no matter who you are, to start solving these problems.
It's amazing. Climate change for any of us is really hard to acknowledge until you see it. And these people are all seeing it.
Now, Marita, you went to San Francisco to look at some earthquake technology.
I did. So San Francisco's earthquake country. They worry about earthquakes all the time. And there are engineers that are developing new technologies that basically are creating structures that are meant to take the impact of an earthquake while leaving the rest of the structure intact. So let's check it out.
Rising from the depths of the San Francisco Bay is the newest architectural crown jewel of Northern California. The new Bay Bridge, which connects San Francisco and Oakland, is now open for business. And what a sight it is to see. Roughly 280,000 vehicles travel the east and westbound lanes each day. It's now the widest bridge in the U.S., with 5 lanes in each direction. This is 6 years' worth of round-the-clock time-lapse video of the new 2.2-mile east span. They built it right next to the old bridge. The project cost $6.4 billion. This is earthquake country. The Great San Francisco Quake of 1906 wiped out 80% of the city. The Old Bay Bridge opened in 1936, and it sits in the worst possible spot, right between 2 major fault lines, the San Andreas and the Hayward faults. And the worst-case scenario happened October 17th, 1989. You may remember this scene from the Loma Prieta quake. A 230-ton section of the old bridge collapsed. Traffic came to a halt for more than a month.
How big of a danger zone is this?
It's a major concern.
How close are we to one of those fault lines now?
We are very close. If you look out at the East Bay Hills, the Hayward Fault basically runs right along the East Bay Hills. Just past the Golden Gate Bridge sits the San Andreas Fault.
The Bay Bridge is a stunning engineering feat for another reason, something that's not visible at first glance. Crumple zone technology. Until now, crumple zones have mostly been used in cars. They absorb the energy by controlled deformations. So engineers say the new bridge won't collapse, even in a powerful quake. Marwan Nader is one of the project's architects. He was a grad student at UC Berkeley during the '89 quake.
I was at a supermarket. We all felt a jolt. People started talking a little bit about rumors, and everybody started panicking.
Where would you want to be if a big quake hits?
The safest place would be on the top of the tower of this bridge. It'll be one heck of a joyride, but it will be a safe one.
Here's what Nader is talking about. This is an animation of how the bridge responds to a major quake. The engineering community considers the innovations game changers. The first one is the shear link beams. They're inside the 525-foot tall tower on the self-anchored suspension bridge.
The shear link beam is the heart and soul of how we made the single tower work. Those link beams actually reduce the forces that go onto the bridge. Everything is elastic.
This animation shows how the beams allow the four legs of the tower to move independently. The beams take the energy by bending and deforming.
The stiffer the structure, the more rigid it is, the more forces the earthquake applies on it. The more flexible the structure is, the less forces go into it.
Just watch your step, watch your head, things are sticking out.
We're now deep in the bridge's bowels to see another innovation firsthand. To get there, we have to walk and climb through a mini city of steel.
Wow, you weren't kidding, huh?
We're hundreds of feet above the bay, but still under the traffic.
Oh, wow.
And it's basically a big steel dowel. Again, this is one of those sacrificial elements where we want this to be damaged in order to protect the bridge deck itself.
You are looking at one of 20 hinge pipe beams strategically placed inside the bridge.
In the event of an earthquake, this will move back and forth like an accordion.
They work horizontally, bending and contorting while allowing the rest of the bridge to move.
And that's where the seismic energy is going to be concentrated. So by designing sections of the bridge to fail, that will protect the more structural elements. After an earthquake, workers can go up, inspect them, determine if there is any damage. If there is, can be repaired or cut out and replaced.
I'm standing on another innovation. Below me are battered piles. Each one is 8.5 feet in diameter and 300 feet long, and there are 160 of them buried deep within the bay to allow for greater stability of the bridge during a major quake.
These are new to bridges, but battered piles have long been used on oil rigs in the ocean. They stand at an angle to allow movement, rather than up and down. Earthquake crumple zone technology is now being used in structures across the San Francisco Bay Area. So the future looks bright and safe in earthquake country. If they can build a safe bridge in the middle of two major faults, the thinking is anything can be safe.
Do you see a day when all new buildings and structures would implement some sort of this technology?
We'd hope. You'd like to think that cities, when a large earthquake comes, it would be an inconvenience rather than a disaster. And I think these rocking frames is one solution.
So that is fascinating, because we've looked at tornado technology, and what they tend to do is build very solid structures. This seems to be quite the opposite.
Yeah, it's totally the opposite. So as the engineer talked about in the piece, the more rigid the structure in the case of an earthquake, the more damage it's going to absorb. So in this case, they're trying to build the structure so that they're actually more flexible and can be more responsive in the case of a seismic event.
Sure, and that really is more in tune with what is actually happening during an earthquake anyway. The way that we study earthquakes is we look at them as waves traveling through the Earth's surface. It's not just two plates moving and that's it.
The technology behind the design of those modular pieces is obviously going to change and adjust and improve, but that's the only piece that you're going to be swapping out.
Brilliant.
Totally cool.
I love it. Amazing stories today, guys. Thanks for sharing them, and we will be back next week with more Techno.
Dive deep into these stories and go behind the scenes at aljazeera.com/techno. Follow our expert contributors on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and more.